We're at Barwon Health down at Geelong Hospital in Victoria. We're here to talk about some of the problems that you can have with the handover of major capital works. Here to talk to us is Steve Ball, Maintenance Planner at the Geelong Hospital. So Steve, if you can tell us a little bit about your role as a maintenance planner here at Barwon Health, and particularly regarding the handover of new capital works and new buildings.
Sure. My role at Barwon Health is primarily focused on building compliance. It's my role to develop maintenance programs that bring us into compliance with all the relevant acts, regulations, codes and standards. The common problems we experience with the handover of new projects is the information we get is often incomplete. It relates to complex building systems which are often not commissioned properly. We often find there's a lack of training for our engineering staff. The building is handed over and it's assumed that people understand the building when often there are new systems and new things to learn about. The documentation often turns up late, and that's a huge problem because we have to maintain the building to compliance from day one. With the documentation turning up 6 months later, we're already starting behind the 8 ball. And then if we find the documentation is not in the format we can use, it can take another 6 months to get that right. So the fact that we can get the documentation in a usable format that we've got control over means that we can commence maintaining the building in a useful manner from day one. The impacts of our ability to deliver ongoing asset management in terms of poor information are that often our equipment comes with warranties of different periods. Now, when the building's handed over, we won't even be aware of what those warranties are, how long they go for, what equipment is even under warranty. The result of that is when it first breaks down, we send our own staff to repair it. We wear the cost, and it's an unnecessary cost. It's a cost we could put back onto the supplier. Operations and maintenance manuals are critical to any facility manager. We've got a range of obligations we need to comply with in order not to introduce risks into our business. And the receival of operations and maintenance manuals 6 months after project completion doesn't help us in that process. In our experience, there's definitely a role for web-based systems in the delivery of R&M manuals. We've developed more of a collaborative approach with our project team now, where we can have input into the manuals as they're being developed. So it's not like we get an end product that we're not happy with and just doesn't help our purposes. We can see it as it's being developed, we can highlight issues and influence the end product. So it's definitely a powerful tool. At Barwon Health, we use Beams as our asset management system, and the advantage of that is that it can directly interface with Webfm. At the moment, when we get our asset data from our contractors, we can export from Webfm in the form of an Excel document, and that will re-import straight back into Beams. Now, the time savings are phenomenal. Usually, entering asset data into Beams or into any computerised system is a time-consuming process. But we can just export in the Excel now and re-import straight into Beams and the whole job's done in no time. Our staff, to be perfectly honest, have got no dislikes about using the web-based process. They still come to us requesting information about buildings. They may have a problem with an air conditioning system and they need information about that. So they'll come to us asking for the information, and what it does, it enables me as a facility manager to provide my staff with the support they need. In a short period of time, they're walking out with a document that's printed up, clear, concise, in a format they can use, and they're off doing the job. So they love it, and yeah, it just makes my life so much easier to interface with them. The FM industry definitely needs to develop better ways to improve the handover process and be proactive. We need to get involved at the design and specification phase so we can influence right from the very start what information goes into our manuals and what format is provided in. It helps the transition from the build to the operate phase because we get the information we need from day one.
So what are some of the lessons that you've learnt in this process?
The lessons we learned in the process of handover are mainly around our compliance obligations. Our obligations to the organisation and to compliance start from day one, so we really need to hit the ground running. It's no use having our manuals turn up 6 months later because already we're non-compliant and that's introduced risks into the business. To be honest, having an OM system like this, there is absolutely no way we go back to hard copy documents. We had so many problems, and I'm sure everyone's the same. The documents have been around for a few years, they get old, raggedy, written on, ripped, people take them and don't replace them. The issues are just ongoing. At the moment, we've got all of our documentation on one CD. We don't have a whole room full of books. We don't have space set aside, and we don't have the problems of tracking it down. It's altering the perception amongst our trade staff and our service personnel of the accessibility of information, and it really does help us to help our service personnel and trade staff to do their job. So I love it. Yeah, I really enjoy using it, so wouldn't go back, no.
Thanks, Steve, for your insights into the Capital Works handover process for Barwon Health. I'm sure the advice and the information will be useful for others who are in a similar role.